Last time we were discussing the 19 angels.
That's right.
This man said that he discovered the significance of the
That's Khalifa.
19 years. But is there is any significance for this number 19, or it is just like...
No. Certainly there is significance in this. The word 19 relates to certain faculties of man again, like the 7 doors. And the failure in those faculties and to be given over to vice in this regard is numbered 19 by God. There are 19 major vices in man which will lead him to hell. So for each vice, like for each goodness, there is an angel who takes care of people and keeps their record of what they do. So although there are just 2 angels mentioned, one on the right shoulder and one on the other, doesn't mean that somebody is really sitting on the right shoulder. It means someone who is appointed to record the good deeds or righteousness of a person. And the other, left indicates the worldly thing. Other keeps the record of bad things, all the vices one commits, etc. So similarly, the vices have been categorized into 19. Offhand, I cannot explain this, but maybe next time I'll be able to, if you are interested, I'll be able to give the list. I have a feeling that Hazrat Masih Maud has somewhere mentioned the significance of 19, but if I rightly remember, then you find out which book. If not, then inshallah I'll be able to let you know. But from another angle, I can throw some light on the significance of the 19. You see, the century prior to the advent of the Messiah is bound to be the darkest and abounding in crime. Because I infer it from Surah Laylatul Qadr. That Layla, which becomes completely soaked in crime, also becomes the Layla of deliverance from crime, deliverance from sin. So that Layla, during that night, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah brought the day of, everlasting day of his Sharia. So the night preceding the day, in fact, indicative of 2 things. At the one end, it is absolutely soaked in sin and defiance to whatever God admonishes people or requires people to do. On the other hand, there is a life, new light. And this is like a sort of small Qiyamah. Qiyamah has also 2 ends. At one end, it ushers in complete death, total, leaves nobody alive. And on the other hand, resurrection, fully coming back to life once again. So the Prophets of Allah do play a role similar like Qiyamah, which is referred to in the Holy Quran as Sa'ah. And the age before them is extremely dark. Zahara al-fasadu fil barri wal bahr. This is the night preceding the morning which was brought by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, or the light of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, which was the light of God. So obviously, judging from that, the period prior to the coming of Messiah has to be similar in that nature. It has to be an age of darkness and sin. And that we can know easily, learn easily from a hadith, that Dajjal has to precede the Messiah. And about Dajjal, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah has mentioned that Dajjal is so deadly an enemy of faith and truth and everything good, that all the prophets before him warned their people against Dajjal. And more than anybody else, he explained what Dajjal is and warned his people, his followers, against Dajjal. And Dajjal, we know, is to come before the Messiah. and he would be destroyed by the Messiah ultimately. So from that and from the reference to the night before the coming of light, I understand that the 19th century, which was the 1800 years and on, was that century which indicated the height of criminal activities against Islam, the height of transgression, the height of violent attacks upon Islam from all sides, philosophies, everything. Now, if you study the modern history, you will be surprised that the 18th century has produced the most vicious enemies against Islam, Orientalists and all others, those who were almost rabid in their hatred of Islam. And the greatest damage was done to the cause of Islam and to the cause of Muslims during this century. Muslim rule was done away with, once and for all, apparently. Of course it will come back. But as far as the enemy was concerned, they saw to it that they never rise again. And it is this century, what we observe today of their hatred, in fact, are the children left by the previous century. They still, make mistakes here and there. But I'm telling you this from the known facts of history, that if one century is to be singled out for the violent attacks on Islam and blatant invasion of truth, that is the century 19th. So, Alaha Tisat Ashar. Against these people who are the fodder of hell, 19 centuries will stand witness. And 19 centuries for Jesus Christ. And Dajjal is obviously related to that. And the Messiah, the second coming of Messiah is also related to that. So everything falls into step. So that is from one angle I said, this is the explanation. But from the angle of vices, which 19 vices of men have been pointed at by God in this particular verse, that has to be studied, and I will come back with the answer inshallah later on. Ahlul Salib, which have destroyed the religion of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him.
وفي نفس الوقت
Because he came for the unity. It's a very interesting thing. Hazrat Masih Maud once wrote the purpose of his advent and coming. In one sentence he said something so beautiful. He said, I have come to break the cross which broke the bones of Jesus Christ. What a beautiful thing, eh? Not an enemy, but a friend, a defendant. One thing I would like you to explain to the listeners or the viewers of this program, that by mistake some people think this is the 19th century. This is not the 19th century. This is the end of 20th century. So although about the last century you say 1800 and some, all people, knowledgeable people know that 1800 means 1800 are completed and 19th has started. So when we say it is 1995, it means 1900s are completed. And 95 years have passed from the next century in the 20th century. So this century is 20th, not 19th. And the worst things happened in 19th century. Before Masih Maud came, and he came at the end of that century. Now remember one other thing, that the worst calamity that befell mankind was an organized rejection of the existence of God. And that was born with communism, with scientific socialism. And that again was born in the middle of 19th century. And developed further by the end of it.
Yes,
so these are the 19,
yes.
Punish the people of the 19th century.
Yes.